Hello, hi everybody. Hello, Helsinki. Oh, is it a spoon? Yeah, that's cute. Helsinki-ish. Okay, hi everybody. Thank you very much, Richard and Lisa as well. I mean, they've been instrumental in helping me get here, and so really great to see everybody. So the title of my talk is "Let's Get Your Angular App to React." I can see I'm already triggering a bunch of people with that very headline. So don't just give me the 30 minutes I deserve, and I'll make it worth your while. I'm going to start by telling you a bit about myself. This was actually taken in Finland by the great gentleman right there, right? Yeah. I never knew I'd take my best dating profile picture in Finland. Right here. So my name is Sani, Yusuf. I'm a GDE as well in Angular, which means it's just a title, and I get to get a lot of free stuff. I don't know what I've done to deserve it, but, well, I can't complain. And I'm also an Angular Bootcamp instructor, so I travel around the world and I train people about Angular and different parts of Angular. And I'm also a LinkedIn author, so if you have a LinkedIn account, search my name, watch my course, let me get some of that royalty money, you know? Exactly, help a brother out. And this, if you've ever visited any of my talks, then you know this is a line I must make about Avatar. Has anybody seen the movie Avatar? Actually, I think at this point I should be asking the question differently. Has anybody not seen the movie Avatar? Exactly. Security. Well, I think it's the best movie of all time. Like, I love this movie so much I started learning the language. Yes. And I'm easy to find online, really. Sani Yusuf, S-A-N-I-Y-U-S-U-F. You know, Google, email, anything. Probably not email, but yeah. If you can find anyone using this username on any platform that isn't half as gorgeous as this, just let me know, right? Okay, let's begin. So what I'm actually going to talk about is forms, right? And for some people it's like, okay, he talks about a very wow feature that we all use every day, and then he's talking about forms. What I'll explain is forms are really important. They're critical, and I mean critical, to our day-to-day interaction with computers, with technology in general. They're very critical, but we don't recognize that. Forms have the ability to make or break your business. How many times have you been to Google and realized that it's actually a form? This is the most expensive form in the world. This is a $700 billion form. Like, but it's crazy, right? It's this one box that is the reason thousands and thousands of people are employed. Because if this form doesn't work, there's an entire business, the world will feel it. But you don't think about it that way. You know why? Because it works. Once you go, you hit google.com, you see this, it works. I can tell you that everyone sat here has used a form today in some way or another. Is there anyone that thinks that they have not used a form today in some way? Your browser, the URL bar, what's that? It's a form. When you're about to make a phone call and you type the keypad, what is that? It's a form. You get into your car, you don't know where you're going, GPS, what's that? It's a form. You're about to leave your house and you want to lock your, the code thing, what's that? That is a form. So when forms work, we don't think about them as forms. Why? Because they are an extension of our humanity. It's almost like it's supposed to work. It's my phone, I whip it out and I make a phone call. It's an extension of your humanity. It's like your car. When you're sitting in your car and you hear a very funny noise, it's almost like you can tell which part of the car is not right. You can feel it's an extension of you. And we use them every day. Every day, they're critical to us. This is another $1 billion form. Without this, there is no Facebook. You can't create posts, then you can't Cambridge Analytica the hell out of people. If you can't do that, you can't, do also crazy things like, swing elections and stuff. And then you have this as well, Twitter. This form creates probably more information per hour than any other form in the world. Well, maybe Google search aside. And again, we don't think of them as forms. Why? Because they just work. You go in, you say on Facebook, hey, I just made $1 billion, and then you're worrying how you got robbed the next day. You know, people say all sorts of things on Facebook and Twitter. All right, so I've made the case about why forms are really critical, right? But we don't see that, again, because when they work, they're just forms. They're not really forms. They're just an extension of day-to-day life. But when they don't work, we are very quick to remember. We're very, very quick to remember. Has anybody ever been to a country where you're trying to buy a ticket, a train ticket, and it's a country where you don't speak the language? You're trying to work your way? I think probably everyone has had that experience, you know? I remember when I went to Portugal and it was like a case of, all right, what is going on here? How do I switch it to English? And then there's like a queue of like 7 people in the back really saying, what's wrong? Exactly. So, let me show you the first form, which is very critical. You go on a website, www.becomeamillionaire.com, and as soon as you land, it's already telling you everything you're doing wrong, right? This form wants you to put your details. Well, you haven't touched anything, you haven't done anything, but you just land on the web page and it's already red. Give me your email, give me your password. Your password is not 6 characters long. I'm like, I haven't touched anything. Just give me a minute. So, the number one rule of how to spot a very bad form is, you know, let me make my damn mistake first. If I haven't made a mistake, you can't really tell me. And the reason is, there's psychological studies to show that the experience you get from using applications, actually affects your mood. So if an application is terribly designed, you're not going to like it. You will not like it. And if it's really, really, really well designed, you will like it. There's a reason why websites like Craigslist.com make $600 million every year, even though they rarely use any CSS. It's white on black. Why? Because you go there, you know what you're expecting, and you get out. And that's really it. So this is the first. You can see this guy hasn't even touched anything, but everything is already red, right? And when I share my slide, every single example I have, there's a stack list link that shows you exactly. Now, this is another one where you go into a form. It wants to maybe take your first name, last name, username, password, and you haven't provided some details, but it still lets you submit the form for some reason. And half the time when you submit the form, it comes back, oh, by the way, you should have put your first name, and then everything's like taken off. So this is another one. You never let a user submit a form. If a user you need specific information, you make sure you let them know that, hey, this is key. This is mandatory. And if I'm signing up for Facebook, I think my email address is mandatory. If I don't enter that, don't let me submit the form. Of course, there are some exceptions to the rules when sometimes if you're using call to actions and acquisition buttons, like for example Facebook, sometimes I think they let you acquisition buttons. If you don't, they will allow you to click it, and then when you're done, something just shakes, says, oh, you need to enter this or all of that. But the correct way would have been to disable this until the correct information is entered, and you also label that correct information. You say, okay, this is what you need. This is not optional. You know, this is mandatory, right? And then this one, which I really, really, really don't like. I'm filling a form, and for some reason, maybe I decide to focus on not really go with order, right? I want to enter maybe I have a very long last name. I am from Nigeria after all, you know, and I need to fill that first. But you can see the form is complaining about the first name, the password, the email. It's not focusing on what the user is doing. You should just focus on that alone and say, okay, you're giving me your last name, and that's fine. It doesn't matter how you fill the form. If you give me the information, I'm just going to focus on what you're doing. And that's like the empathy part. You know, be aware. Of course, again, there are some exceptions to this rule as well. Sometimes you have forms that you need to fill specific things in specific orders. Like for example, if I'm shopping and you want me to put my postcode first, because it's better if I just put my postcode. You tell me, look, I don't really deliver to your neighborhood. There's no point allowing me to enter my address, house number, if in the end I don't actually deliver to you. So there are some exceptions, but for the most part, this it is. So you should be able to know when the user has entered an input, the input has changed, and things like that, right? This guy, nobody likes this guy. This guy. That's why nobody likes doing taxes, right? Is there anyone that loves doing taxes in here? No one loves taxes, and the government is still figuring out why people don't like taxes. It's not really that we don't want to give you your money. Make the damn thing easier, right? It's like it's a very long form. Here it's asking your personal details, the details of your dog and your cat, your spider and gorilla, all the other pets that you have in your house. And it's like, maybe it would have been better if you like let me put one detail first, maybe save, or section it like, a bit of, what's it called, progress. And this is actually one of the reasons why people feel stressed when they walk into exam halls. Because once you walk into an exam hall, you can see the 100 questions that are being asked. And if you were like me and you did not study, you're screwed already. You're like, okay, this is gonna be long. But I promise you, and there's been some research to show this, it's still not academically proven, but people have tried to do exams where they break so if it's like 3 papers, they break it. So they say you have an hour to finish this section, and then you take a break, and they give you another section, another section, instead of just giving you the 3 papers. And people actually, there has been some reports that people just feel a little bit more calmer, like, okay, let me get this done, get that done, and all that. All right. And I think this, for me, is probably my worst one. You've convinced me. I want to give you my details. I want to give you my credit card number. I want to buy something on your website, right? But I go there, and I fill all my details and all of that, and I click submit. And what happens? Oh, by the way, this username is taken. Or, oh, you still have an account with us. But guess what? The form comes back empty. And I'm like, you could have told me that before I actually filled it. What would have been nice is that, while I put the username, something would just go and check and say, oh, this username is taken or is available, choose another one. And I think Yahoo was the very first to do this. When you were creating a new email address, they'll be like, this is taken, here are like some suggestions based on what you've entered, that kind of thing. Helping the user, you want the user's details, you want the information, right? So it's in your best interest to help them, to guide them. And if you are doing this where you're going to the server and back, at least pre-fill what they filled, ensure they help them. That's what users, if you notice, how many people actually, when you buy a car, read the manual of a car or a toy? Even while I was a kid, I never read the manual to a toy. It's a human nature thing. We want to feel like we're smart. Even when we buy IKEA, which is like the easiest thing, it was made like, hey, just read these instructions. We like to just say, nah, I'm just going to put it aside. I'm going to look at the thing and try to figure it out myself. Because there's this sense of accomplishment that comes with, oh, I was able to figure it out. And it's the same thing with forms or website. Nobody really goes to the FAQ or help of a website. We want to try to figure it out. And when we don't, we feel frustrated, right? With IKEA, I've already paid my money. I have no choice but to read the manual. But with a website, I can just go to another website and get the same thing. It's the same thing when you try to buy something online and you're using your mobile phone and then the website is not mobile optimized. Right there and then you're like, I'm just going to wait till I get home. But if I give you an alternative, you're just going to spend your money in that alternative website. The same thing. All right? So, this is how I feel about those forms. Now, we could go on and on and on about how forms are terrible, but these are probably the very, very popular, terrible forms. Now, so how can we create better forms? So we're all here for an Angular conference. Before we begin, how many of you here are Angular developers? Okay, entire room. How many of you are React developers? Okay, 1, 2, 3. We know where the serial killers are now. Anyways, but forms are really difficult. It's very difficult to create forms. It's not an easy thing. Whether you use HTML, whatever technology you use, it's very, very difficult because every form is different, right? What the user wants to achieve is different. So Angular has a very, very specific thing that allows you to create really, really wonderful forms. And that's why I introduced you to Reactive Forms. So Angular has this thing called the Reactive Forms module. Before I actually start, Angular has 2 modules. There's the Forms module, which every time you use the Forms module, an innocent puppy dies somewhere. Don't do that. Don't be responsible for such. Do not use it. Don't take my word. Take the word of the guys that actually built it. And they said that last year in NGConf. Don't use Reactive Forms. We made a mistake. So, sorry, don't use Forms module. Use Reactive Forms, my bad. We made a mistake. So, what features of Reactive Forms, before we actually get into it, is it allows you to observe. In terms of observation means, what is happening while this user is using this form? Have they entered this information? Have they entered that information? Have they entered their password? Have they entered their confirmed password? Did the confirmed password and password match? Have they focused? Have they changed this thing? You need to know so that you can react and show error messages at the correct time. Right? Empathy allows you to empathize with the user, guide the user to complete the form. You know, really, really, really nice. One really good form that I like is, has anybody used the old RxJX documentation website? Where if you're looking for an operator, that was a really, really nice thing, right? I don't know why they took it out. Well, you basically ask you, what are you looking for? What do you want to do? And everybody loved that. Why? Because it's almost like it was thinking for you. But it's just a simple form. You know, composability. Some of us have that manager that wants us to create that component that can end World War III, and you know those managers that come to work and just, it's like they dream of something impossible and they just go, yep, here's it, go do this. You want to maybe create like a composable form or something like that. And extendability as well, allowing you to maybe, if you're in an organization, you want to create like internal tools that other people use. Reactive Forms make it really easy. So let's talk about the building blocks quickly. So everything about Angular Reactive Forms comes from something called an abstract control, right? And within the abstract control, you have three members: the form control, the form group, and the form array. Now we're going to talk about each of them individually. So to get started, you have to do your house cleaning. You make sure you import the Reactive Forms module, and then you get everything. So let's talk about the form control. This is basically when you want to bind to an individual like input element, right? So you basically create a new instance of this form control, and there are some parameters you can configure, and then you bind it to something called the form control property, which will be made available by that Reactive Forms module for you. And then now you have a one-to-one mapping with this, right? But sometimes, well, most forms are not just one input control. They're a bunch of things. So that's where the form group comes. It's, mainly use this with a form element of HTML, and you use it to aggregate a bunch of controls. So if like you have a bunch of input elements, and you do that with a form group, so you can just do something like that, and you aggregate the form control, and you bind it via the form group, and then you use the names here, the form control name, to do a one-to-one mapping with all the internal members, right? And then you have another thing called the form array, which is just like the form group, but it gives you an array-like syntax instead of like an object-like syntax. So if you to use index instead. And then you can use the declarative approach, which is basically something called a form builder, to create your forms. So up until now, I've just been talking. One thing I didn't tell you is I'm actually a Viking too, Look at that. Although my defense is really terrible. So just to round up my talk, I'm just going to show you a little bit of code and some of the things. And this is what I'm going to demo: value change, built-in validation, composition, and custom validation, right? So I'm going to quickly go through this. Let's end this. Okay. Let's see. How do we mirror this? I guess I might have to do a little bit of troubleshooting here. How do we mirror? Okay. Mirror display.
Anyone who's here with a car, please remember to get a code from reception, or you can't get your car out from the garage.
Please remember, guys. All right. So the first thing I'm going to quickly show is basically this. So I'm just going to open this up, and I'm going to make this a bit larger so everybody can see. Can everybody see? Right. So this is just like a simple Twitter thing where here you can see that as I type, I can see like a lot of things, and you can see like different states change: untouched, touched, valid, invalid. It's untouched until you actually leave the focus. That's when it gets touched. And valid is basically if the rules you set for that particular form are being obeyed. Dirty is basically the initial value has changed, and then so on and so on. So there's like around 6 properties you can mess around with, and I'm able to like calculate how many characters are left because I can observe with an observable. And we can actually see that in the code here. So what control allows you to do is, you can see on line 19, it allows you to bind to something called the value changes observable, which emits values, and you can just get the length from there, and you can do that. And all this is going to be available. So we're quickly running out of time. I have one very magical demo, but there's 2 more demos. Let me just quickly run ahead and show you the second one. So this is the second one, which basically shows you all these guys. And if we look at the code quickly, what we can see here is, 1 second. Yes, so what we can see here is, what we have with the code is, I'm actually saying that I want the password and confirm password not just to be empty, but what if I need both of them to match up? Then you can also create what we call like a validator on the group level itself and not on the control level. So if I come in here and I say, you know, saniyusuf@gmail.com, I've just given the whole one my email, and I put like 1, 2, 3, 4, it's valid, and I put 1, 2, 3, 4, it's valid. But if I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's still valid because I put a password but they don't match, and I can still check that with the Reactive Forms control. Now I'm gonna go on to my last demo, which is one I've actually worked on. So this one allows you to solve the biggest problem I talked about, which is the, you know, what if you need to go to the server to validate something like a username, right? Or like, let's say I deliver to only Espoo and Helsinki. So this is a demo I came up with, and I used a tool called Zippopotamus, and it actually gives you access to check what's it called, zip codes. So does anybody have a zip code in like Helsinki or Espoo that, you know, who wants to let us know where they live? You know? Okay. 02150. 02150. So we definitely delivered to here. And this is actually using a real API code, which I will show, right? Does anybody have any postcode that is out of Helsinki and Espoo? 44140. So we definitely don't deliver there. Exactly. So this is actually, let's quickly have a look at that code while we quickly run out of time. What we're actually using here is something called an async validator. What is happening here is every time you enter that, a call is being made, as you can see on line, I don't know if I'm blocking this, as you can see on line 28 upwards to his Zippopotamus, which allows you to, it's a tool that's been built by somebody that says, okay, they can check where the postcode is, and I'm just searching for it. If the place you are is Espoo or Helsinki, then we deliver to you. If not, then this is not going to work. So now we can actually make a real-time API call to make this form valid. And this is like live working, using the internet, actually making that call, right? So this is just a small thing to show. Unfortunately, if you don't live in Helsinki or Espoo, sorry, you know, only deliver to cool places. But yeah, that's pretty much it about the async validators. And I'm just gonna quickly go back to this. And yeah, so just to round up with forms, it's basically, forms do have the ability to make or break your business. And the way you design them is key. And Angular gives you a very, very scalable tool called the Reactive Forms Control Module to allow you to express your ideas. There is a direct link with how easy your form is with how much money you make, because people will abandon your website. And this is where Reactive Forms Control really comes in its own, right? So I'm just gonna, all the links are on my Stack Blitz, okay? Let's get this guy out of the way. So all the links are on my Stack Blitz. You can go to the Angular guide if you want to learn more. And if you need to ask me a question, go on my Twitter. It's not a it's not the safest place all the time, but you're welcome. And if you want to learn in person, feel free to get in touch at Angular Bootcamp. And without further ado, I'll say thank you very much to Helsinki, to everyone here, to Lisa, to Richard. I've really had a great time, and I hope I've been able to pass on something. Thank you very much.